and we'll go start with the Commissioner, then President Calderon, and then I'm going to go through a little bit more of the details of what's actually in the contract that you can follow along with the press release as well. Commissioner?
Absolutely. So we're excited certainly to announce that our largest police union in the Boston Police Department has settled a contract with the city, and I am really excited the fact that this contract reflects certainly for the men and women that do the work, the bulk of the work in the police department, certainly a fair compensation for the work that they've been doing to make Boston one of the safest cities in America, and more importantly, that it matches the values that we expect from our officers, and more importantly, that we expect for them to do in the future here to make sure that the city stays the safest in the country. It's an excellent contract in many ways in which that we have a lot of resource issues, certainly in the police department and in the country in general, and it helps us deal with some of those resources. It has reform in there for issues in the past that have certainly plagued every police department in this country, and I don't know if too many departments are able to get around arbitration and the pitfalls that come with that, or at least over the history of arbitrations. And so it addresses that, and more importantly, it addresses, like I said before, some of the prioritizations of how we use our resources, and more importantly, when we use them. And so I'm excited about so many aspects of it. I don't want to take up anyone else's time on this, but the fact is it's just, I think, an exceptional contract, and more importantly, I'm happy for the men and women that do this job every day, and hopefully they appreciate this a great deal because we appreciate them. Thank you.
Thank you. Morning, everybody. I'm Larry Calderoni. I'm the president of the Patrolmen Association in Boston. Thanks for being here, and I want to say thank you to the mayor for allowing me the opportunity to speak and address everyone. Thank you to the commissioner as well for leading the department and having an excellent working relationship when it comes to how we treat the men and women in uniform that are protecting the citizens of Boston and our visitors every day. So on that note, I couldn't be more thankful to the mayor. They had good faith bargaining at its finest. I've been involved in bargaining in the Patrolmen's Association for well over 2 decades, and I can tell you that this was a pleasurable experience with the mayor and her team, Lou Mandarini, Renee Bushi, and everybody that's in the room. It was a pleasure working through this, and although at many times you saw some rhetoric out in your world about taking months and filing joint labor management, I'm happy to say that my members are ecstatic. We were able to get to a conclusion in a shorter period of time. We were able to avoid the arbitration process. And at the end of the day, this is a contract that is fair and equitable to the men and women in uniform that are answering those calls for service. At the same time, we help policing evolve. I know the famous word out there is reform, but I like to look at it as police evolving. We are bringing policing into the future. We are having better educated officers, and they're being fairly compensated in what undoubtedly is one of the most expensive cities in America. So we're happy this morning to report that we have a deal. It was overwhelmingly ratified last night by our membership. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioner, and I appreciate the time to address you.
Thank you to the 2 leaders who have spoken and who've been great partners. I also want to recognize our Senior Advisor for Labor, Lou Mandarini, who is without whom we would not be here today, alongside Renee and the entire OLR, or Office of Labor Relations team. Thank you also to Jamie and the entire Executive Board for your partnership as well. We are excited to be here to discuss a historic contract between the City of Boston and the Boston Police Patrolmen's Association. Commissioner Cox, your clear vision and strong leadership has been shaping our department every day and continues to strengthen our city every day. So I'm very, very grateful every day that you said yes to coming home. And President Calderoni, thank you for your determination to fight for our officers and to deliver for those who deliver every day for our residents. As you heard a little bit of, this wasn't an easy process. Larry's determination and mine made sure of that. And although the months of intense negotiations got us to a groundbreaking contract, I also want to acknowledge the toll that years of working without a contract has taken on our officers and their families. The BPPA represents nearly 70% of all sworn members of the Boston Police Department, and their last active contract with the city expired on June 30th, 2020. That means that officers worked without an active contract through most of the pandemic and all of our recovery since, across 3 mayoral administrations. I'm confident that we reached the best deal for our residents and for Boston's finest and their families by settling this at the table together in good faith without leaving it up to outside parties. And that's because all of us at the table wanted, more than anything else, to do right by the people whose lives will be impacted by this contract. Over the last 2 years, I've had the chance to see up close what it means to be a Boston police officer. The care and encyclopedic knowledge of every street in the district, riding along on a last half shift in B3, the rigor and detail shared during CompStat monthly meetings to analyze trends and coordinate strategies citywide, the professionalism and compassion on scene at any hour of the day or night when a horrible tragedy takes place, the community spirit and connection watching over our most joyful events, parades, festivals, open streets, and the responsibility and dedication of being on hand for the hardest challenges we face as a city and the coordinated efforts to address them, like at Mass and Cass. I've also heard from the families of our officers, their shining pride at BPD graduations, pinning a badge, entering a new life of service with their loved one, and their worry and stress when their loved ones are called in multiple weekends in a row for mandated overtime due to staffing challenges. And I've heard also from community members who helped steer our selection process that yielded the best police commissioner in the country, and who helped advise and shape the asks that we brought to the contract negotiating table for clear steps forward in earning community trust and codifying accountability. Historically, negotiating these contracts has been about compensation and compensation alone. But because of the many voices we all listened to throughout this process, the city, the department, and the BPPA took a different approach, recognizing the potential for bargaining to serve as a tool to deliver the highest standards of community policing anywhere in the nation, while securing resources for the health and well-being of officers and their families. The result is a contract ratified yesterday, unlike any other that the city has ever reached with our law enforcement personnel. At the highest level, this contract includes a cost of living adjustment, significant operational reforms, increased educational opportunities for our officers, and a retention program. The cost of living adjustment is fairly straightforward, and you have the numbers in the materials. Across every sector, workers have been feeling the impacts of an uncertain economy. From rent and travel to groceries and school supplies, the cost of living has gone up and wages have not kept pace. That's why this contract includes base wage increases of 2%, 1.5%, 2%, 1%, and 2.5% over each of the 5 years from 2020 to 2025 to ensure that our officers are fairly compensated for the work they do. The total cost of this contract, including the items I'll keep mentioning below, is projected to be $82.5 million, or 21% over 5 years, which is an average annual increase comparable to the most recent several past contracts. The difference, again, is that those contracts did not include any operational reforms alongside those increases. For the first time, we collectively are delivering operational reforms evolving through this contract, which reflects much of the priorities that we all heard in the listening sessions with community and with our officers. So I'll start with discipline. Our highest priority is and always will be our residents' safety, and we must hold all we entrust with that responsibility to the highest of standards. That's why, for the first time in Boston's history, this contract eliminates the pathway to overturn disciplinary action or termination through arbitration if an officer is indicted for, or if a sustained internal affairs finding is issued and upheld for specific criminal acts. There should be no loophole for those who commit grave criminal acts to wear a badge. And this also just gives that predictability so the process doesn't drag on and on with arbitration. This contract also improves Boston's paid detail system by modernizing the detail assignment process and opening up details to other personnel so that needed shifts are filled. Currently, 40% of all details go unfilled. The highest priority details have serious impacts on safety and traffic flow, but often go unfilled and are compensated at the same rate as any other detail on a quiet residential side street. This has resulted in many of these unfilled, high-priority detail shifts covered by mandated overtime at significant cost to the department, the city, and the taxpayers. Now, under this contract, there will be a separate designation of a high-priority or Type 1 detail that must be filled first and will be compensated at a higher hourly rate, recognizing the increased risk and necessity of these details. You think of the major intersections where an emergency gas line project is happening, or a bridge reconstruction project, or a large-scale event with over 5,000 people that will have an impact on traffic and safety, and we need those officers there to keep traffic flowing and to make sure that all road users are safe. So first is that separate designation of the high priority details that will be treated separately and filled first. Also, more personnel will be eligible to ensure that these details get filled beyond just Boston Police. BPD will have the first choice of any details, and then those that remain unfilled by our Boston Police officers can be filled by Boston Police retirees, Boston Housing Authority police officers, university police officers, Boston Municipal Protective Services officers, and civilian contract personnel. This contract also eliminates double booking of details and authorizes the department to set up a streamlined system to modernize the assignment and administration of paid details. These changes will ensure greater overall coverage while prioritizing the sites that have the most impact on traffic flow and safety, and creating more jobs for more residents. Next, medical leave. When negotiations first started, 153 officers had been on medical leave for more than a year. That's around 10% of the patrol force. Our officers deserve clear and timely decisions, which can prevent medical leave situations from dragging on and then requiring other officers to cover shifts with mandated overtime. Moving forward, rather than engaging in a lengthy and complicated arbitration process around medical leave, all disagreements regarding an officer's ability to return to work will be settled by an independent medical examiner. Relatedly is union release policies. We believe strong unions make for fairer, stronger workplaces. But previous union release practices had more officers than necessary stepping away from core police work to attend to union business while on duty. It was far more than other municipal unions had. And so this new contract slims down that number of officers, and I'm very thankful to the union for recognizing the shared value that this brings to the residents of the city of Boston. And because actually keeping our community safe, interrupting cycles of poverty and violence, building connection, fostering trust, supporting our residents, because that requires a wide range of skills, we're expanding the Boston Police Department's educational incentives program to include more schools and more majors. We are adding the UMass system, Northeastern University and Boston University, as well as degrees in sociology, psychology, and public administration. This is to ensure that our officers continue to be the most well-trained and well-rounded and organizationally effective leaders in our community. Finally, effective July of this year, this contract establishes a new retention incentive, the Transitional Career Awards Program, for police officers with 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25 years of experience, which will replace the current Cumulative Risk Enhancement Adjustments Career Awards Program. This brings police officers' compensation enhancement opportunities in line with those of the Boston Fire Department as an important tool for retaining the talent, commitment, and courage that distinguishes our department. Taken together, these changes are a shared investment in accountability, fairness, and effective organizational practices to improve community policing and the working conditions of our officers. Thank you again to President Calderoni, Commissioner Cox, our OLR team, with a special shout out to Lou Mandarini for helping steer us to an agreement reflecting our shared values. And thank you to the members of the BPPA for ratifying this historic contract that will help all of us better serve the residents of Boston. Okay, just one more summary in Español. Make sure all of our residents understand what we're talking about here today. Gracias a todos por acompañarnos aquí para hablar acerca del acuerdo histórico entre la ciudad de Boston y la Asociación de Patrulleros de la Policía de Boston. Estoy muy agradecida por el comisionado Michael Cox, cuya visión clara y fuerte liderazgo que continúan dando forma a nuestro departamento, y fortaleciendo nuestra ciudad todos los días. Y gracias al presidente del sindicato, Larry Calderoni, por su determinación de luchar por nuestros oficiales y cumplir con aquellos que cumplen todos los días con nuestros residentes. Durante los últimos 2 años, he tenido la oportunidad de ver de cerca lo que significa ser un oficial de policía de Boston. El cuidado y la compasión, el profesionalismo, el compromiso y la dedicación para servir y proteger a nuestra comunidad en nuestros momentos más dolorosos y en nuestros eventos comunitarios más alegres. También he escuchado a las familias de los oficiales, cuyo orgullo se mezcla con preocupación y estrés por el sacrificio que están haciendo sus seres queridos. He escuchado a miembros de la comunidad, quienes ayudaran a dar forma a lo que llevamos a la mesa de negociación de contratos para dar pasos claros hacia adelante con la meta de ganarnos la confianza y la responsabilidad de la comunidad. Históricamente, la negociación de estos contratos se ha centrado en la compensación y solo en la compensación. Debido a las muchas voces que escuchamos a lo largo de este proceso, la ciudad, el departamento y la BPPA adoptarán un enfoque diferente. Reconocer el potencial de la negociación para servir como herramienta para ofrecer los más altos estándares de vigilancia comunitaria en cualquier parte del país, al mismo tiempo que se garantizan recursos para la salud y el bienestar de los oficiales y sus familias. El resultado es un contrato ratificado ayer como ningún otro que la ciudad haya firmado con nuestro personal encargado de hacer cumplir la ley. En el nivel más alto, el contrato incluye un ajuste por costo de vida, importantes reformas operativas disciplinarias, detalles remunerados, licencia médica, tiempo de liberación sindical, mayores oportunidades educativas para nuestros funcionarios y un programa de retención profesional. En conjunto, estos cambios son una inversión compartida en responsabilidad, justicia y prácticas organizativas efectivas para mejorar la vigilancia comunitaria y las condiciones laborales de nuestros agentes. Gracias nuevamente por un contrato histórico que nos permitirá servir mejor a los residentes de Boston. Okay, thank you so much, and we'll open up to questions for anyone who's here.
Mayor, do you think you have the support from the City Council for the appropriation to pass?
So we are working on a tight timeline because the agreement has been ratified and there are now 2 council meetings left before the end of the year. So to avoid having to ask the council to call a special meeting, we sincerely hope that councilors can take this up before the end of this calendar year. It will be filed tomorrow at that next city council meeting to be sent to committee for a public hearing, further vetting, community full process, and then we hope for a vote by that last meeting of the year. We have not had, because this has been just recently ratified, and we wanted to give the membership the respect of having the first look at the language and all the terms. We have not been counting votes or anything, but now that it is finalized, we will begin doing some of that outreach and look forward to participating in the hearing.
Now that it is finalized, do you expect the 3 other police unions to follow suit? Is this going to be sort of a prototype for those other unions, do you anticipate?
Yeah, I mean, we have been in conversations with all of our unions, and much of the, I think the terms and the working conditions could apply very nicely here, and so I know we will be begin really in earnest to talk about what differences might be needed or what else should be on the table specifically now that this standard has been set. But we felt it was important to start with the largest of those police unions and make sure that we could particularly get to those officers who are, among the kind of standard of income levels and salary levels, that those officers who are on the ground, newest, just getting started in their careers, could have resolution first.
Talk to me about the discipline provisions. How is this different from what's currently on the books in terms of policies and protocol? These assume, obviously, the offenses listed here are very serious. I guess the question would be, is there really a world in which an officer who has a sustained IA finding or is indicted for any of this stuff wouldn't be fired currently.
We have the case of Patrick Rose, and so there unfortunately have been examples of multiple of this kind of these items on the list where the arbitration process creates just enough length of time where, for example, witnesses who participated originally might not want to a year or more later on, or it just adds this level of unpredictability. I think we heard and we just saw the department or the members of the BPPA vote overwhelmingly to say that we all deserve to hold ourselves to the highest standards, and anyone who this badge means so much in our city and in our community, and these are for the first time. I don't know the exact number. There's this gigantic paragraph of a list of all of the offense in indecent assault and battery on a child under age of 14. I won't go through all of these. These are very serious, but this is the first time that anything has been held out as being separate and carved out for clarity on the process, not going through arbitration. And so, again, it is either indictment or the sustained internal affairs finding, and those are we unfortunately have been through this fact pattern before. Commissioner, do you want to add more on how this might change anything?
Yeah, and so, the arbitration process is, if you go back to the history of it, is hit or miss, and more often than not, unfortunately, the arbitrators have, for whatever reasons, overturned some of these cases. The fact is, for these offenses, that won't be the case. Right, and that's something that not a lot of police departments in the country can say right now in general regarding arbitration, regardless of what the charges are around that. So I think certainly this is an exceptional start to make sure that people that are fired stay fired. People that don't belong are separated permanently around that. And so I think it's a tremendous thing, and we're looking forward to it.
Hey, is this the biggest accomplishment of your administration?
Sorry, can I just add a little bit more, and I want to make sure if Larry wants to add anything on this last point too. We are not here talking about having achieved all of these items, having one side having won over another. We came to these steps forward for our department and for our city together. And I really just want the residents of Boston to hear and to know how groundbreaking it is that our Boston police officers overwhelmingly voted to hold themselves accountable to the standards that they believe our residents deserve. And so, again, this wasn't forced down on anyone. This was an agreement at the table, and we always talk about how Boston has the best police force in the country. We are the most well-trained. We are the most professional. The statistics speak for themselves. But then to also see our officers really put their own money where their mouth is a huge deal. And again, this just comes with so much gratitude and respect for these officers who are holding each other and holding our whole city to the standards that they are swearing to uphold. Do you want to add anything, Larry?
I'd like to be as clear as possible, so I'll try to be thorough in answering your questions when it comes to this discipline language. To be very clear, the one thing that a police officer dislikes probably the most is a dishonest police officer. It embarrasses every man and woman that's in uniform. And what this discipline language does is it clarifies that we can never have an incident like Pat Rose in the future. And that's what the men and women voted for last night. That is what my team, my general counsel, and I came to terms with the mayor, because this is a no-brainer. We can never have a police officer in uniform commit an atrocity like Mr. Rose. So I want to be clear on that. That is exactly what this language does. That's exactly what the men and women I represent voted on last night, and we accomplished what we set out to do. And if this language helps that in the future, then we've been very successful. At the same time, I also want to speak on the behalf of the members I represent. Just like anyone that's in the crowd or in the general public, we all have due process rights. We will defend our members like we're supposed to, when they're in the right or falsely accused. But there is no room in the future for this type of behavior that we've had in the past. Thanks, ma'am.
And that we'll make sure the language is broadly available. There's a lot of items on this list. They're all very serious, but items related to the safety of children, items related to assault with intent to murder or maim, extortion, kidnapping, drug trafficking, hate crimes. So and this really comes from the charge that our community members asked us to pursue in the beginning, and again, reflects so much on the officers who we have here in our city. What was your other question, Danny?
I think that covered it.
Okay.
For me, anyways.
Anyone else? Again?
What was the turning point? And where did the deal get finalized?
Oh, yeah. So do you want to say anything here?
I'll answer that.
Let's see what we think is the turning point.
Sorry, Lou. I'll answer that question for you. As I stated earlier, it was a long 10, 12 months. The mayor got acclimated and taken over for the previous two mayors, and we came out of COVID, and it's been a very long, trying time. But this team, my general counsel, my team, and the people I've already stated, we fought for our sides. So if you want to say that we were doing battle, as you saw me in the newspaper and my statements and comments in the city as well, we both did our jobs respectfully, and at the end of the day, this is a great contract for both sides of the table. But the turning point, to be frank, was the mayor stepping in the room, sitting down and saying to me privately, how do we make this work for the men and women in uniform? How do I show the men and women that I care about them every day? So the turning point is the mayor stepping in and closing the deal.
Yes, please, Commissioner.
I just wanted to add another point, and you know, sometimes your common ground is there, you know, in so many cases, and right now policing has issues with attention. Keeping people, attracting people, and addressing certainly, you know, compensation to make sure that we're able to do the job in a city that's relatively expensive. And I think this contract went a long way of helping us, you know, keep officers, attract officers, and more importantly, deal with some of the resource issues that we have in general across the board in a way that's productive for everybody here in the city. And so I say that, you know, coming together around those points probably helped in so many ways.
In terms of location, it was virtual. And I wouldn't say that there was one turning point, but I would say that you know, this happened over the course of about 18 months. And these were vigorous give and takes. You know, it was at all times respectful, except for when it wasn't. But we were direct. You know, we were honest. We both talked about what both sides needed to get out of this. And that was, you know, that's exactly how collective bargaining should operate.
Other questions? Yeah.
I know that, you know, it took a long time for this contract to be renewed. Looking forward into the future, what can be done, or what have you learned in this bargaining situation that will keep officers in the future from working years without a contract? And I know that a lot was done here. Clearly history was made with this contract, but what can the city do, or just in general, to not have it last this long?
Yeah, and that's a really important focus across all of our 48 municipal bargaining units for the city of Boston. When I came into this office in a very stressful time for the city overall, with COVID, with multiple transitions, all 48 contracts were expired. And I remember the night before being sworn in, the very last contract expired, and then that was it. We had to start from scratch with everyone, which was a situation that the city has never been in before. Most of these are multi-year contracts. I would say most are probably 3 years long, but this one is 5 years long to not only make sure we take care of what we are retroactively needing to adjust to make sure our officers are compensated fairly, but then also getting a little bit of time ahead as well. But for all of our unions, we are basically right back at the table because we had closed so many of those contracts over the last year and a half and want to ensure that we're never in that position again. It's not good for anyone when our contracts are not resolved, and it just means having a rhythm and a pace where we get to it with, before it is expired, so that we're not starting after the item already is done. And I think my hope is that we'll be able to, one, because we're not digging out of a hole at this point moving forward, it'll be a smoother process. But two, I hope that we've also all just built stronger relationships from going through this, getting to know each other, really laying a lot of the groundwork over this last year and a half. We didn't get everything we wanted on either side, right? We came with more asks. The union certainly had more items that they were pushing for, and that's true across every negotiation. And for better or worse, we're going to be right back at it again very soon for the next one, so there'll be more to pick up.
I just have one question for the Commissioner. How, when the policeman, policewoman puts on their badge and goes into work, how do they feel now that this contract's signed? How do they feel differently? If they do, how do they feel?
Well, I don't know how they feel, but they should feel as though that they're respected, and the fact is that they're valued. They do tremendous work day in and day out, and that both the community understands that, and certainly the city and the mayor understand that. And I think this contract reflects that. So.
Sure, absolutely. I'll echo the same sentiments that the Commissioner's putting out there, and I'll go a step further, seeing that I saw hundreds of our officers coming through the door over the last couple of days to cast their ratification vote. They definitely feel honored. They're relieved. This has been a long time coming, and those short conversations as you're greeting a fellow union brothers and sisters coming through the door is, hey, thank goodness. Wow, job well done. Thanking our team. Many people coming through the door asked that same question about where the turning point was, so it was easy for me to answer it, but they feel relieved, they feel thanked, and hopefully moving forward, the process will work, like the mayor said, much easier than this one was, and we'll continue to have a workforce that gains in strength, as I know that both the commissioner and the mayor are committed to hiring hundreds of more officers, and the less times that our officers have to be ordered, the better they feel, just like any other human being. So a contract goes a long way for them. Thank you.
Do you have a percentage for how many members voted in favor last night and Sunday?
I don't have an exact number, but last night I got called out of the room as they were still continuing to count the ballots, so I can tell you that at that point in time, we had just under 1,000 out of our 1,550 members, so it was an excellent turnout. I don't have exact numbers for you, but it was a great turnout.
Yeah, the private security firm provision, or I forget exactly what the verbiage is, in the details, do you have a firm in mind for that?
No, as with any major contract with the city, this would go out through an RFP and through a request for proposals and then bidding process. I think we would work together to set some parameters, and some of them are laid out in the actual MOA language around the qualifications that such a firm would need to have with understanding this kind of work and with the city and what the task is. The goal is that we are doing something a little bit differently, and we want to ensure that there are proper resources to move quickly on this, but also get all of the personnel that we mentioned, all of the post-certified officers that are non-BPD officers, any other contract personnel, that everyone would need to be very seriously trained on traffic safety and management, de-escalation, anything that might come up that our officers are very familiar you need when you're working in detail.
Sorry, I'll just ask again. Is this the biggest accomplishment of your administration?
I think we have big accomplishments every day. I mean, you just have to pay attention. But that's right. So if you want more, we're happy to give you more. But this is, I mean, it's the culmination of so many months of being at the table. But also, I would say to me, I feel incredibly proud and grateful to be standing here today celebrating this, because it also reflects every of the conversations and interactions I've had with our officers and their families and our community members. We are so lucky as a city to be one of the safest cities in America, if not the safest major city in America, to have essentially invented and continuing to lead the way on what community policing means nationally, to have a force that is so well trained but also so dedicated. I mean, every single day there are moments where I get to see our officers in action. It's something that, you know, those little moments that never get written up in a report or highlighted on the news, the extra bit of care to help an elderly person cross the street, or to kneel down to make sure a child feels seen and gets an extra smile that day. I mean, I think our officers carry so much of the responsibility for our community to feel like everyone belongs. They play a really important role, not just in the response to public safety incidents, but in being part and growing the fabric of our community and how people feel about our neighborhoods and the places that they love the most in the city. So I have countless stories of how much they make a difference every day and inspire me every day, and so I'm really proud that we got this done for them. Yeah.
You said not a lot of other cities have disciplinary policies like this related to arbitration. Which other cities could you name that Boston's now comparable to?
Aware of any?
That's a tough question.
Yeah, I mean, the rolling back of arbitration or putting any limits on it is, I mean, I've done this for 25 years in one form or another, and the labor movement as a lawyer and other things. I've never heard of it. Well, I mean, all the ones that didn't have it.
So
They inspired us.
Is this first in the nation provision?
I think it would probably be best for us to check it out. Larry, do you have any thoughts on this?
Throw me under the bus. I would have to say, I apologize, I don't know your name, Dan. I don't know of any other place in the country that has made this type of change, which is why I was very strong in my approach earlier that my organization, and very much specifically myself, I've been a police officer going on 30 years. This can never happen. This should never have happened. And if this helps it not to happen ever again in the city of Boston, then this is a great change to our collective bargaining agreement.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you.